Philly's favorite 100.7 FM and 99.5 HD3. Good morning, everybody. It's Chris. We're getting started with Real Talk with the real estate diva, Desiree McDuffie. We have a special show today, as always. But today we have two special guests. They are experts in the field of real estate. So, as always, get your pens and papers out. You're going to want to get this information down. So it's going to be a jam-packed show. Get ready. Stay tuned. Let's go.
Everyone, this is Desiree Real Estate Diva McDuffie with another episode of Real Talk with the Real Estate Diva, and we have a fantastic show for you guys today. We have some real estate veterans here. I mean, these people are true experts in the real estate industry, and we are so blessed and honored to have them here with us today. They're going to drop some great gems for you, for real estate agents as well as buyers and sellers. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce Miss Desiree Davis. Listen, I said that for a reason. I'm going to tell you in a second, right? But Miss Desiree Davis, she's with Next Home Consultants. And I also have Mr. Phil Cavalcanto. He is the leader of the Little Big City group. I've known Phil for, 11 years now? I think I joined Calvalcanto. It was preferred then when I came over, and I have a great story to tell about you too, Phil.
Okay.
Listen.
All right. That's gonna go. Okay.
I do. It's a good story. I promise you. It's a good story. But I have while I'm talking about stories, so Miss Desiree Davis and I are always getting mixed up. Always. I swear, in the Philadelphia area of real estate, it must be just two Desirees. Gotta be. Desiree and Desiree. No one else. And literally, I'll get calls or I'll run into somebody and they will think I am her. And I think, people think we look alike too. So, these two little chocolate girls, they're like Desiree and Desiree. So, but I wanted to tell this quick story, right? So, Des, I got an inbox one day from this lady, and she was asking me why I didn't come to someone's party or something, and I was just like, huh? Who are you? I don't know who you're, I don't know. She was like, it's your cousin or it's your aunt. And I was just like, I don't have a cousin or an aunt.
Oh, wow.
Whoever. I'm like, who? So I went on their page and I started searching to see, do I have family members with this? Or do we have mutual family members, friends, or anything? But apparently, she thought I was you, your own family member.
Oh, wow. No, that's bad. That's really bad.
Sent me a message on Facebook and thought I was you. So I assumed she was a distant family member or someone who
distant.
Yes, but I was like, oh my God. So even family, gets us mixed up, I guess, at some point.
Wow.
Yeah. So Miss Desiree Davis, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in the real estate industry.
Well, first I want to say, Des, I really appreciate this platform that you have, and congratulations. I think you're doing great things, bigger things to come, and I'm loving the journey. So when people get us confused, it's great because I'm like, well, she does big things and I do big things. So, at least we're doing big things together.
Exactly.
And I'm definitely honored to be on the show. So again, I'm Desiree Davis. Everyone calls me Des. I've been in the real estate industry for about 15 years. I got into the business by accident. I was a juvenile probation officer. And then I did social work. So I have a degree in psychology and criminal justice. And I was thinking to myself, why would I do real estate? However, I had a friend, I bought my first investment property, and she was actually a realtor. And I started giving her all the referrals, and she said, Des, you know what? You should be a realtor. I'm like, I don't want to be a realtor. I solve people's problems. I don't need to be a realtor. She was like, no, become a realtor, and you can really solve those problems. And so I said, okay. She sat me down and showed me, this is what I make from you giving me all these referrals.
Ooh, she showed you that.
That's the potential.
I said, oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll go get my real estate license. And so that's how I really got into the business. And I was doing social work, and I was basically, I wouldn't call myself a part-time realtor because I was making enough income. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm doing social work. And what I realize is that with buyers and sellers, sometimes you have to become the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the teacher, the mother, the parent. So this industry fit for me. And it's been great ever since.
You know, the crazy thing is, Des, guess what my background is in?
Psychology.
Social services.
This is why they really get us messed up. It's crazy.
They are the same person. You cannot tell me that. That's
right. Yeah, it's funny. I get the same calls too. And like, you know, I met with a contractor at a property. I have this short sale and he swore up and down I worked with him before. I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm like, Desiree McDuffie probably worked with you before. And he was like, no. And I was like, no, my name is Davis. And, you know, so it's funny. But like I said, I'm glad you're not out here committing crimes and things. Things
Same here. Yes, and doing all kinds of unethical things.
Right.
Yes. Absolutely. So thank you again. It's so funny that we have similar backgrounds. And then we're doing this. And the reason you got into real estate is extremely similar to the reason I got into real estate as well. So, you're right. You know, our background in social services definitely helps us to be able to do what we do in real estate for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Cavalcanto.
Okay. Well,
I love that last name.
Yes.
well, I can definitely say we will not be mixed up as twins.
Oh, I don't think
so. But again, congratulations again on your platform. This is exciting for you.
Thank
this
you.
Really is.
Thank
Can't
you.
wait to see where you take it. And thank you for inviting me today.
Oh, absolutely.
This was very interesting. This is my first time doing a radio show, so I'm very excited about that too.
Before, because I told my little story about Des, so I'm going to tell my little story about you.
Okay.
Because again, just like last week, right? We had Jeremy Bowers on the show, and I said I love to give people their flowers while they're here, right? So Mr. Phil Cavalcanto. Listen, guys, if it were not for this man here as well, I would not be doing what I'm doing in real estate right now. It was a true blessing when Jeremy Bowers placed me in the office with Mr. Phil Cavalcanto. When I tell you this man has a wealth of knowledge about real estate, this man knows his stuff. And all I did was sit in that office and ear hustle. And I listened and I listened and I listened and I listened. And obviously he gave me some wonderful tips, but I truly do believe it was a blessing. Because I came from a smaller brokerage and I wanted to, instead of being a big fish in a small pond, I wanted to be a small fish in a big pond where I could grow and learn from people. And Phil Cavalcanto, you, sir, was definitely, I still come to you like, Phil, what do you think about this? Listen.
That's awesome.
Yes, I never pretend to know everything, and I love to surround myself with people who know more than me. And I mean, don't go stealing my clients, but no, guys, but I'm just joking. Like, listen, this man does. He knows more than me, right? I'm going to be honest, and I'm blessed to have him as a resource, as a mentor, because I do consider you a mentor to me in my real estate business. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
I believe that knowledge should be shared. We are not in this business alone. We are not one person offices. Even though you may operate your business as one individual, you still support other people, whether it's, other people within your office, other people within different areas of business, banking, title services, law services, so you never stop learning.
Absolutely.
Every day you have to be open to something new, because at the moment you say, I've learned enough, then you're done.
Yes.
And that extends out of work. That extends in life too. You can never stop learning. Always, always, always. That's one of the most important things that I do every day when I start in the morning as part of my routine, which, we can always talk about, what we do individually to motivate ourselves every morning and what we do to kind of set our day apart when we start. So that's a really lovely story. Thank you.
You're
I
very
appreciate
welcome.
that.
You're welcome. I know that you're always in trainings, and I'll just say this really quickly too. When I came over to Caldwell Banker Preferred at the time, I noticed, and this is a tip for up and coming real estate agents, right? Like Phil said, always be willing to learn. And when we had the meetings and our trainings, all of the top real estate agents in our company, such as Phil, were always sitting front row. Now, they probably heard those trainings 10,000 times, but they still showed up because it's always something that you might be able, something new you might be able to pick up. So I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that,
that's okay.
like,
knowledge, again, you never know when that's going to be imparted to you. So you always need to be there and you always need to be receptive. So that was taught to me early on in my career. So, it's, always answering your phone. That's the biggest thing that I see that I think we can improve on as an industry. And I know it's generational because my generation answers the phones. We would be, text is one of those things we discuss later. We'll email, but it's not necessarily our primary. I would rather talk with a client and a customer on the phone.
Yeah, it's better to build that relationship as well.
And it improves communication.
Absolutely.
It makes it easier when you're trying to get points across. When someone's concerned, you can hear the concern in their voice where you may not hear the concern in a text message or in an email, but in their voice you're going to hear so you can immediately address those issues.
Absolutely.
Again, going back to Desiree saying, we're also psychiatrists and psychologists and the parents sometimes and the handholder. When you hear that vocal, okay, I need action here.
Absolutely.
I need to take action to help this client.
Absolutely. So I'm sorry, we got into talking about all this other stuff. Phil, your background.
My background. There we go. I was looking for a great segue, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, Phil Cavalcanto. I'm with Coldwell Banker Realty. I started in the business next month. It'll be 18 years.
Wow.
I joined a team when I first started, and I'm a firm believer that if you're going to get into this industry or you're less than 2 years in the business, you should join a team or work with somebody as a mentor, even if you're not on a team or the person's not going to be a team. You need to have a mentor in this business. You cannot do this alone. There is too much to know. And remember, you're dealing with potential legal issues. So you always want to have the client's best interest at hand.
Absolutely.
So you always need to sometimes just bounce ideas off of things. So I joined a team, and how I ended up on that team was I come from the travel industry. So a lot of my adult career, going all the way back to like 1987, I started in the travel industry with Eastern Airlines. So now I'm really dating myself because there are probably listeners going, who's Eastern Airlines?
I've never heard of
I haven't either.
I'm going back to the days of Pan Am and TWA and People's Express. Where they brought the cash register down the aisle. Yeah, they brought a cash register down the aisle. Kid you not. So, we're going back a few years. So, did that. Ended up in the travel agency side, eventually moved to Philadelphia within the industry of working for a travel agency, went from a big guy to a small guy, helped a very good friend of mine open her own online brokerage right around 2000 when everything was going internet. And the internet was out there and, everybody was selling everything on the internet. I got into a smaller internet agency here in Philadelphia. Called Vacation Wired, and helped, at the time, really good friend open that business. And, that's when the internet a couple years later started to shift and change, and so did the travel industry. People started wondering, do I need travel agents? I can go online and book my own things. So I was booking travel for a gentleman who was calling and booking cruises 2 or 3 times a year. And I said, what exactly do you do, if I may ask, that you can go on vacation, 7, 10, 14 days at a time, 2 or 3 times a year? And he said, I sell real estate here in the city. And so we started talking very casually. He said, you should get your real estate license. He used to own a travel agency decades before that. And he said, if you can sell a cruise over the phone, and that's an experience. You're selling people vacation experiences. They've not been there. They don't know what to expect. You're doing that over the phone. Imagine how great it's going to be to help people buy their first home when they can actually see it, open a door, close a window, sit on a couch, and understand how it's going to work for them. So it took him about a year for me to change my mind. And I started taking classes in 2005, got licensed. I was working part-time in that industry and part-time in real estate. So I'm working 5 days a week. 8 to 5. Then I spend my evenings going on appointments, and Saturdays and Sundays doing 3 to 4 open houses a day to attract buyers and get in the business. And eventually the other business had to go. I had to get out of the travel industry because I started growing, started selling a lot more properties, and I needed to be present for my clients on a daily basis. So never looked back when I left the travel industry. I still have friends that'll call me and say, hey, what do you know about this cruise line, or, you know, where are you going here? And I'll put things together for friends and family. But other than that, I never looked back. And, you know, it's been exciting. I learned a lot of what to do, as well as, you know, some things not to do while I was on a team. We started as just, I think there were 3 of us. And at one point, the team had grown to, I think, 6 members on the team with an administrator. And again, eventually, I decided it was time to branch out, become an individual agent. Had enough, I felt, education and training to develop my own business and brand, so I did. And that was around right about when the market shifted, right around 2007, 2008. So, you know, again, jumped right as the market shifted. Learning experience. And shortly after that, a couple years later, the company approached me with starting a team on my own. They had newer agents that they felt would do well on a team. So we've been a team since then. You know, it's, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've been small teams of 2 or 3 people. We've been large with 6 people. You know, we're a team that I always believe if you're going to be part of the team and eventually grow, and you know, you're going to come to me and say, hey, Phil, I'd like to be my own. Totally get that. Listen, this is a business of independence. And if you want to run with that, you have my blessing to go do that. Be successful at it. It's not easy when you turn the page, or as I say in The Wizard of Oz, look behind the curtain, because you're going to discover a whole new wealth of situations. But some people have done it very successfully. Others have decided the business wasn't for them after a short time. But, you know, I never looked back. And even now that we're into this, you know, shifted market, it's not shifting, it's shifted, you know, from last year to this year. And, you know, it's the same thing. You know, we all have to adapt. We all have to change. We all have to either go back to the skills we had or learn new ones in order to adapt. In this business.
We're always learning. One of the things that I believe both of you mentioned is the transition from one career to the other career, and the hard work that you put in to be able to become full-time real estate agents, to eventually shift over. What a lot of newer agents, and we can get into that, what they don't realize is this is not an easy business. And you do have to work hard at it. You know, as Phil said, you know, he was working Saturdays and evenings. And so he wasn't taking 5-7 day trips in the year, you know.
Not in the beginning.
Not in the beginning. But guess what? He is now. I'm like, Phil, where are you going now? I'm like, Phil will be going for like 10, 15 days on vacation. But he set his business up. He put in the work so that he can now do that, right? So that's what we all have to do. I'm still working on being able to do it myself. I want to take 30 days off. Just go away, you know? But right now, I'm still working, and I have to work, you know, at my business. So to transition into that, let's talk about some of the things with this changed market, right? Some of the ways that real estate agents who are in the business, who are looking to get into the business, can be successful. Because I know when I got into the business, I jumped in 2007.
Around the same time.
I know, isn't that crazy? Exactly. So and the market had changed. It was shifting then. By 2010, I was just like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. You know, the market was just really crazy. But I stayed and I remained and I put in the work and I learned the skills. So what skills do you guys believe that, you know, are required for a new agent just jumping into the business?
So let me touch on a few things that you guys have talked about. One, the never stop learning. No matter how the market is, it's so important for a new agent to understand that. And even as a seasoned agent, at one point I decided, you know, when I started doing transactions with some other agents, let me just sit down with some people just to see, you know, what makes their business tick and how I can be better. I sat down, I did a deal with Mike McCann and a couple of people on his team. I said, Mike, let's go out to lunch. Such a nice guy.
Yes.
We went out to lunch and I just learned different things. And as busy as he is with his business, the one thing that I took away from what he said to me, always respond within 24 hours, no matter what. You have to have you have to have a schedule. And he's $1 million agent,
Yes.
multi-million dollar agent.
Yes.
So it's kind of like you're not that busy and you have one transaction that you can't respond to someone. And Phil, I know you mentioned communication is so important. Yeah, you know, some agents like to text and that's fine, but coming from a psychology, you know, and kind of therapy background, some people need that voice, you know, they need to hear your voice. They need to know that, okay, it's going to be okay. Yes. And something that may seem like it's not a big deal to us, it's a big deal to them because this is a long-term commitment, you know? So even in a shifting market, like you have to go back to the basics, return people's phone calls. I get text messages all the time from clients, and that's how they prefer to communicate. But when it becomes a book-long text message,
it's time to pick up the phone.
It's time to pick up the phone because you're not going to understand what I'm saying and what I'm talking about. And then you have some of these agents that, I mean, they're just so great. They may sell 2 houses a year. They can't answer your phone calls. And you're like, I mean, we can see how many transactions you've had. You haven't really had that many. And you can't, like, you're not that high maintenance that you can't call me back. So, like, just going back to the basics, respond on a daily basis, you know, respond to your clients. You know, because the fact of the matter is, and the most important thing is treat that $1 million client like you would treat that $50,000 client, because that $50,000 client may get you to a couple of more $1 million clients. You know, and I hate to see when agents, because a client is not spending a certain amount of money, they treat them a certain kind of way. Like, we're all people, and we're all in this business to help others. We're in this business to make money, of course, because this is our, it's our job. But you have to, the human element still remains. Like, people, you have to be kind to people,
Absolutely.
and I think when you go back to the basics of, answering the telephone, responding to phone calls. I know for people, social media is a really big thing. I have to get better with social media myself.
That we all do.
Yeah, my title company always tells me that. Like, she takes pictures now when I go to the title company, like, I'm going to post for you. But I think, going back to the beginning of, hey, just the simple things. The simple things matter.
Absolutely.
They do.
You made several key comments. Obviously, picking up the phone, treating everyone the same, regardless of whether or not they're $1 million buyer or a $50,000 buyer. And that's actually how I ended up getting into the business. Part of how I got, but I was looking to buy an investment property in 2007. And I could not get a good real estate agent to help me because I wasn't spending a whole lot of money.
That much, right?
So it was a struggle to get someone to help me. And I said, I will not become that agent. And Phil, you and I talked about this. We talked about increasing price points and all of those things, but for me, it has to be a balance. And I can say, Phil, you work everything, and you do respect everyone. Phil will sell multi-million-dollar properties, and then you look on the board, you got $75,000 right here. He respects everyone. So again, I told you I keep learning from you, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's.
I'm going to take Phil and I are going to go. Listen, I go out with agents all the time. We're going to go out. I'm going to call because that's the best way to learn. Like, for a new agent, call some of these seasoned agents and say, hey, let me just pick your brain, because what may not work for one may work for someone else. But I have to ask you, Des, did you call all those agents back like, look at me now?
The crazy thing is, the agent that I did end up getting to help me, I found out it was his very first transaction. Okay. And he's no longer in the business now. Oh, wow. So, but it's very important that we service, all clients. So one of the things you mentioned, Mike McCann, this was, I don't know, maybe about 2011 or 12. Mike McCann had a rental listing. And in my brain, Mike McCann was big super agent. Right. And when I showed his rental listing, I'm like really thinking he's going to have somebody else handle that. Guess who handled it? Mike McCann. So again, so many agents think that they're so big, but what you don't realize is, like you said, Desiree. Because I want to say your name.
It's hard for her not to say Desiree.
So, but like you said, every small, I guess buyers who are spending not so much money, they may have an uncle somewhere, or guess what? They may refer like 5 different people to you because you gave them such great service, and it all adds up. Right. So, I get it. When I talk to some agents sometimes who are just starting out, and, you may mentor them, and I don't want to do anything below a certain amount.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do rentals.
Wrong attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many clients that I took out on rentals years ago who, obviously because we stayed in contact with each other, turned out to be buyers.
Yeah.
That's how you create longevity in this business.
That's right.
So, Phil, I'm running my mouth. Go ahead.
And you never know. You never know where the next transaction's coming from. And so I always say that, unless it's a problematic issue with an individual or the two individuals, you just didn't get along. Listen, it's, having a client is sometimes like a marriage.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And sometimes it's the responsibility of both parties that has caused that. But with that being said, I have a listing right now that you brought up. I have one in Southwest Philadelphia, and it is a guardianship, which is very different. The person is alive, but they have a court-appointed guardian to handle the financial matters for them. So you have extra people involved.
Oh, yeah.
There's a judge involved in approving. There are requirements for appraisals. It's not just, hey, throw a sign up and it's sold. Like, everybody has to sign off on this because it's an individual's money that can't really speak for themselves. Well, that's $60,000. I sold 2 fire properties last year in the same neighborhood. Fires in the interior for $40,000. We didn't let people walk through them because we weren't sure of the stability of the house. Well, one of those clients from last year actually just referred me a family member that is now selling a house that's 4 times that value.
Yes.
So you never know where you're next, because he had such great experience. I got a phone call from a woman who is going into, a senior location. And I said, how did you hear from me? And she gave me, her nephew's name. And I had, I went back and looked, and I'm like, oh, okay. So you never know that the client you helped on something that was $40,000 or $50,000 is suddenly going to be a $200,000 sale.
Absolutely.
And, you may attract a buyer to that. Now it's a $400,000 transaction for you. So you can't, while I do agree, some people are going to be out there and say, I only work this neighborhood, or I only work this price point. And that's fine. That's them. That's their business. And that's why we're individual business people.
Yes.
But I don't turn business down unless I feel legally it doesn't make sense for me to do it. Like there may be something I'm uncertain about, so I can't do it. Because I don't want to do something that's wrong.
Absolutely.
So, my job as a realtor is to protect the general public. We have ethical boundaries for those things, and we have to adhere to those, which is why many of us are not wholesalers. We have a real estate license. We are realtors.
Yes.
And we have the ethics boundaries
Absolutely.
that we must adhere to. So, but I think for newer agents, one of the things that somebody who's either brand new or somebody who's getting into the business should also look at, because I still do it, even 18 years in the business. There's a great book out there, and I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to mention, but it's Miracle Mornings by Hal Elrod. And it's not a heavy duty read. It's a very thin book, but it's going to tell you about how to set your morning up for success before even 8 a.m. gets here. And it's what I do is I have daily affirmations. Well, I don't just read them, I write them down. And they're the same ones. Sometimes they change, but I write them down.
Wow.
Because your brain remembers it in 2 spots when you do that. I write down what I'm thankful for. And sometimes it's waking up in the morning. Sometimes it's a person in your life. Sometimes it's your belief or your faith. But lots of different things that I'm thankful for. I watch something that's positive, or I read something that's positive. And sometimes it's a motivational video, and sometimes it's my coaching video from the coaching company that I have. Just something to keep me moving. I hydrate. because you get dehydrated when you sleep. So the first thing the book tells you is when you wake up, you have 8 ounces of water at least.
Yes.
And because it gets your brain functioning properly. Then you have the coffee. But you got to have the water first. I journal every day. I meditate. I do those kind of things to keep moving in the morning. And that sets me off. I don't turn my phone on right away. I don't check my email first thing.
Yes.
Listen, if it came in over the evening and it was an emergency, the emergency has happened. I will deal with it when I turn my phone on. But other than that, I don't sleep with my phone next to my bed. I have an alarm clock.
Oh, I'm guilty of that.
Oh, no, because it lights up every time somebody sends it. No, I'm not
tried
living
to
in
put
a
it on
disco.
the
I
other
don't want to
side.
see
I'm
it.
trying. I'm working on it.
Alarm clock.
It's like under my pillow.
Wow.
Well, and I was reading a stat, and I heard a stat the other day that 75% of people actually check their phone and their email before they get out of bed. Now, that's a huge stat if you really think about that.
It is.
90% of those people have already gone on a social media before they got to the kitchen. I mean, that's
Yes.
huge. When
I
you
can
start
believe
realize-
that.
And I do too. And I, every now and then I get guilty of that. But, and I realize, no, it's on the phone. I need to get my morning going. I need to be in the right frame of mind. I don't watch the news. If I turn it on, I watch the weather. But this morning, I just happened to have it on. The first 8 minutes were deaths and killings and shootings and everything
And that's what you're putting in your
Right.
your spirit for the
Exactly.
day. Yeah.
Not just here, elsewhere, because we
Yes.
don't have enough of that. So, of course, they must import news from other cities that are having
Yes.
problems. That's not how I want to start my day. So, as a new agent, you have to be in the right frame of mind to deal with your clients and your customers. You have to have the motivation yourself, and then you can start your day with what you need to do. If you're, I used to say, this is an industry where you need to work full time. But
Absolutely.
I will say there are part-time agents out there. They're not part-time just in an employment standpoint. As I don't mind part-time agents as long as they're also giving full-time experience to the client.
Got
You
it.
don't have to work 8 hours a day in this business, but you do have to give 100% effort to your client. It's got to be a full-time effort. When they call you, you can't call them back 20 minutes later from a stairwell. We've all heard those phone calls where you've
absolutely.
called somebody and they have to sneak off to a stairwell to follow up with you, and you're like, okay, hopefully you're not calling your client like this, but
Yes.
okay, that's your business. But the goal for me was this was not an extra income. This was going to be my career. I stepped over that line of I don't get a weekly paycheck.
Yes.
I do if I have transactions lined up that way. But, I'm my own business. I own my own business. So just like an IBM or just like a Google, I have my own profit and loss statement. I track what I do. I track what I spend. It's you run a business. This isn't a part-time thing for me, and it's not a part-time for successful realtors.
Absolutely.
Because we get up in the morning, and Desiree, both of you guys will agree with me on this. You have to set your plan. So if this is something you're considering as a career, you definitely have to make sure that you are prepared. I tell people if you're going to make that jump, you have 6 months of income. You look at your bills and say, what are my bills every month? Do I have that times 6 in the bank? Because there were a lot of realtors this fall that didn't have any deals, no transactions from August through December. Well, that's 6 months. And so a lot of them went back to their other jobs because there were no transactions. They didn't have money. Some people lived really high on the hog from 2020 and 2021 because most people say that was their most successful year. They didn't pay their taxes.
They didn't save any money.
They didn't save any money. They bought the new cars. They bought the new houses, the watches.
The bags, everything.
Guess what? The IRS doesn't care because come tax time, they will get their money from you. So did you put money aside? They'll work out a lovely plan with you at a really great interest rate.
Right.
But, so you've got to have a plan. You've got to have somebody, and being either on a team or having a mentor or an experienced agent walk you through these items is going to be critical for your success.
Absolutely.
It just is.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I can take my phone from up under my pillow.
It's a process.
It really is.
It is.
I think I'm just so nosy. Like,
Yeah. You get onto social media looking at everything.
not really even social media all the time. I'm just like, I'm scared I'm going to miss something in the middle of the night. Not even with like a client, it's more like my family or something. I want to make sure like my phone's probably not going to leave from under my bed.
We're honest.
That is a very learned behavior.
It really is.
It is. One of the things that, well, with iPhone, and I'm pretty sure with Android, you can put it on like do not disturb, and you can set your phone to only that, certain people can get through. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
Like I have certain faves in my phone, and if they don't call me after a certain time, my phone do not ring. Like literally. And you have to learn how to set those boundaries, because for a long time I was running crazy in this business, right? But we talk about you have to put in the work, right? Yeah. But eventually you do have to get to the point where you set boundaries, because you will have clients calling you 11 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning. And in the beginning you are excited. At least I was. I'm like, I remember one of my first deals, and I don't recommend doing this today, guys. I really don't.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer, I don't. It ended up working out for me, but literally I remember this was back in the days of Craigslist, right? So I put on Craigslist, I was a real estate agent, blah, blah, blah. So someone called me, I think it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So I answered my phone, and they're telling me that they're looking for an investment property and blah, blah, blah. Gave me the list of properties. I'm like, okay, well, this was like a Friday night. Well, I'm available. We're only in the city tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock now. So I, like, okay, I'm excited. And I, scheduled these appointments. I was out the door at 7 o'clock in the morning showing houses to these people. I didn't know anything about them, that I met the night before at 9 something at night. I don't recommend doing that. I think that, in this day and age, you have to put certain protections in place for yourself, because all kinds of crazy things happen out there today. If you do it, just make sure you, put those protections in place. But that's something that honestly today, where I am today, I probably would not do. If I meet somebody 9:30 at night, I'm not out the door 7 o'clock in the morning, showing them houses. Because here's the thing. Once you start doing that, it's expected, so they're going to expect to call you 9:30, 10. They're going to push it 11 o'clock at night and, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5. And we are not robots. We don't work 24 hours a day. We try to get back to you as quickly as we can, preferably within, as you guys both said, the 24 hours. But, we're not robots, right? We got to sleep. And if we don't sleep, we're no good.
Not a good experience for anybody.
No, for anybody.
And I think it's important to note, especially, for female realtors, to not just go out and meet someone because you're excited, and that happens a lot of times. You may have someone that calls you and they say, "Hey, I saw this house on Zillow. Can you take me out to see the property?" It could be like a Jeffrey Dahmer. You definitely don't want to do that. And there's an app called Forewarn, actually. Forewarn, where you can put in the person's phone number and, different things come up. And I had someone call me about a rental property, and I put in the guy's phone number, and I kid you not, it was stalking, sexual assault, all kind of things. And I canceled that appointment.
Oh, I bet you did.
Yeah. So, it was a rental property, but, I'll still take someone along with me, if I feel uncomfortable, even after I've kind of vetted a person. If it's my first encounter and they, found me on the internet and they weren't a referral, I feel more comfortable with referrals, because typically it's a family member or a cousin or something. But yeah, I mean, I know we're in a day and age where people find us on Instagram, Facebook, Google. So you just have to really be careful.
Yeah.
Not to take away from the guys, because they have to be careful too.
They do.
It's all due diligence.
Right. They do. All right, before I get in trouble, this is Real Talk with the Real Estate Diva. I am Desiree McDuffie, and I am here with Mr. Phil Cavalcanto. He is the lead agent with Little Big City Group, and he's with Caldwell Banker Realty, just as I am. And I am also here with Miss Desiree Davis with Next Home Consultants, and they are our experts for today, sharing some awesome tips with real estate agents about how to be successful in the real estate business. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Let's transition a little bit into the market where we were and where we are now, and where you guys think that we are going as an industry.
I'm happy to jump first.
Thank you.
So just to kind of give you an idea, I mean, I think we've all experienced, and here's the thing, the general public knows what's going on. If you turn on the news, you're hearing about interest rate hikes. You saw in August, September, October, November, December, all of the stories about the housing market and things weren't moving, and everybody posting their thoughts, and supposed financial gurus saying don't go buy a house right now. You know what, and buyers and sellers are very confused, and they were this fall. People were calling me saying, what should I do? And what do you think we should do? What's happening next year? And I laugh because I say, listen, here's the thing, I don't have a crystal ball, and if I did, I would have done very different. I would have bought Apple stock when it was like $1 a share.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that tells you I don't have a crystal ball on that. But you have to look at where we are. You have to basically look at where we were. And a lot of people are afraid of 2008. That was a financial crisis. We are not in a financial crisis. We are in a housing crisis, meaning there's not enough inventory for the amount of buyers. Now, we also have inflation that was happening. And, we all know the Federal Reserve had to slow inflation because that was going to get crazy. And we saw that in housing prices. And they don't want to go into a recession, so they're slowing the interest rate increases to slow spending.
Yes.
We've all noticed that. Everybody talks about the price of eggs. And when you go to the supermarket,
$13.
you're looking for the cheaper price of eggs. Okay.
Yes.
So, bring it all the way down to the small tip of the iceberg where, okay, I got to save $1 on a dozen eggs. Where do I go? What do I do? So the Fed is doing the same thing. They're raising prices on things to slow the market because things would be very unaffordable everywhere else. Right. And we get that. But as a market, did we slow down? Yes, we did. The housing market took a hit, and keep in mind that the housing market, as part of the gross, domestic product, is almost 20%. I think it's 17 to 19%. That's huge portion of the economy, and that's why in 2008, when the financial crisis happened, housing sank.
Yes,
and everything about it sank because it was so tied to the economy. But to kind of compare, last year, January, interest rates in 2022. Were 3%.
Amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable.
We got spoiled.
We did. And keep in mind, and I tell people too, you have to realize, especially as an agent, there's an entire generation who has never seen an interest rate above 4.5. They just haven't. They never heard of it. Now, we as agents try to put our arms around the public saying, listen, back in 2000 and whatever, or back in when I bought my house in 1992, I paid 7.5. The buyers today don't care what I paid in 1992. They're seeing that in January it was 3% and in May it was 7%.
Yes.
Okay, that's a more than double.
Yes.
That scared a lot of people, and I get that. So the market slowed when the interest rates started spiking. We all saw that. But, here's the good thing. I mean, January of this time, while, yes, things have slowed down, the housing costs have still continued to grow, especially in Philadelphia County. Last year, the average house sold at $309,000. Now, that takes into account the multi-millions that are in certain areas, like, say, Rittenhouse Square, compared to the house, say, in, Southwest Philly that's $70,000 or $100,000. That is livable, but is in that price range. So when you look at that and go, okay, the average last year was $309,000. This year, the average is $326,000. So we're up a little over what we were last year. But interest rates are higher. So we also have seen, our monthly supply of inventory is at 5.8%. Now, and I'll go into that quickly. Last year in January, it was 2.34%. Now, to a lot of listeners, they're like, what does that mean?
What are you talking about?
That means that if no other houses came on the market, it would take 2.3 months, let's just round it out to 2, to sell a home. And it would take all the houses off the market inside of 2 to 3 months. No more, if no more houses came on. Every buyer bought a house, we'd be out of houses in 2.3 months. Now, it would take almost 6 months for the same thing.
Yes.
What does that tell you? There are a little more houses on the market. They have been sitting longer, okay? And they've been sitting longer because buyers that were ready to buy at 3.5% or 4% are now not running into that, oh my gosh, I need a house right now. No, you do need a house, but we need to make it the right house because you don't have the choice to maybe switch houses in 2 years and get in a similar interest rate.
Yes.
You know, you're not going to go from 3 to 4. You know, you're buying an interest rate that might be 5.8 right now, which is still very affordable. Okay, long history, yes, it is affordable. Everybody's been down that street. But you also have to make decisions on what you're buying. It needs to be the right house. This is a long-term purchase.
Absolutely.
Real estate has always been the long game. This is not a short-term thing. So you need to make sure that you're happy with that. We're seeing not as many buyers buy in the city because it used to be, hey, buyers were going to buy in the city. Maybe they're single individuals, maybe they're not, but, they're going to buy affordable homes in the city. Then they meet somebody. Then maybe there's a family, or they're doing better, so they might move elsewhere, or they might move to the suburbs, school districts, lots of reasons for people to make that jump to the suburbs. What we found last year, and even into 2021, people were skipping the city and they were moving out to the suburbs. They were making that suburban jump. And so the city kind of got a little bit of a slowdown last year. Now, we are back to seeing some multi-offers. So a house goes on the market, multiple offers come in, not as many. I had buyers that were part of that 20 to 25 offer situation. And you're like, okay, should I send it wrapped in glitter so that when they open the envelope, glitter flies out? How do I get my offer accepted over the other 20 some odd offers? And, there are tips and tricks that you can do with that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the seller and their agent's responsibility to make sure it is the best deal for their client.
Absolutely.
My offer may not be the best deal. We're going to structure it as best as we can, but we're going to still safeguard what we need to. So from a stat perspective, housing prices are up. We are seeing that, the sales price to list ratio is down a little bit because we were seeing a lot of overbidding last year in the beginning of the year. So we are seeing, instead of things selling at, say, 105 or 110% of asking, they might be selling at 96% of asking right now. That's still okay. It's still, it's not all the bells and whistles. So sellers need to kind of take a step back and realize where they're at. That falls on their agent to educate them. To educate the seller on, here's what's happening right around you. Because, selling in Center City is going to be different than selling in Manayunk or selling up in Northeast or selling in Cherry Hill or selling in Bryn Mawr. So your seller needs to be educated on that. So as an agent, you need to know your stats. You need to know how long it's taking things to sell. You need to know what your competition is. Because if they're seeing your house, they're seeing the other houses. And what do we need to do to get your house sold from a buyer's perspective? What do we need to do to get you the right house? So that initial list is going to be critical for buyers to know that as well.
Absolutely.
Yep. So from a stats, we're seeing that, we're seeing that slow return to, I don't want to say a stable market. I'm going to say, a more even market than what it has been the last 2 years.
Yeah, you make a really good point. And then, naturally educating the buyer, because you have the mom and dad that come along and they've purchased the house 10 years ago and they're saying it should be like this. Nothing is the same. It's just never the same. And that's when you really have to counsel them, like, we're in a different market right now. What happened 10 years ago, because I was there 10 years ago, it's not happening now. And like you said, there's still, I put an offer in out in Delaware County and it was 5 offers. Everybody went over the asking price. And I'm thinking, okay, we're $15,000 over the asking price. Who would have thought?
Who won?
35. Somebody went 35 over the asking price. And I'm the agent. I'm never waiving an inspection. I'll do an inspection for informational purposes, but I have too much on the line to waive the inspection. All agents do things differently, but yeah.
Yeah, we were finding a lot of properties were only getting offers accepted where people were waiving inspections last summer, this time last year.
I think it's important though to let the agent know, hey, we're going to do the inspection, but it's only for informational purposes. Because I think where people get confused is that even though you're saying that you're waiving it, a good lawyer, we live in a real litigious society, so a good lawyer well, you could still get sued, you know, and I think that's where a lot of, I was explaining to some of my sellers, hey, you know, somebody's going to tear that up and say, okay, they waived it. But if you know that your house has some material defect and you're not disclosing it, they're going to, hey, there's waiving the inspection or not, somebody can come back and, you know.
No, absolutely. That's why I tell a lot of sellers, you have to be 100% honest on that disclosure.
Yeah, it's disclose.
Yes, disclose.
And if you have to ask me, should I tell people about that? You already know the answer. You already know.
Exactly.
You already know. So just make sure people are aware.
Absolutely.
And it's protecting the general public, just like you when you were a buyer, wanted some sort of a protection.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even though the game has changed from what people are waiving, they're going off of that seller's disclosure. And in Pennsylvania, it is required, but it is not required in every state.
No, it isn't.
In New Jersey, seller's disclosures are normally not provided. And if you have a seller who is providing one, you got to be thankful. It may not, it's probably not going to be thorough. They may provide their own inspection that they did, or maybe if the property fell apart, getting that other inspection if they are willing to provide it. They are not required to do so. Even in Pennsylvania, I don't believe, and again, this is getting into legal, so I'd have to check with that. If a seller is required to provide an inspection report, I know they have to update their seller's disclosure after an inspection, but I don't know if they are required to provide the inspection report. That I would have to defer to, you know, somebody that went to school to be an attorney.
Yes.
Which I did not.
And we always give that disclaimer, like we are not attorneys.
Not attorneys giving legal advice. We are giving our professional opinion.
Absolutely.
We're having conversations.
Absolutely. So what are some things, to just shift a little bit, what are some things, and I'll do it both ways. What are some things that a buyer can do in this market right now to strengthen their offer to a seller?
Well, one of the things, I think your deposit, your earnest money deposit. Buyers need to save money. I know there's a lot of grants out here, and you know sometimes buyers, if they're utilizing 2 grants simultaneously, then you know they may not have to come to the table with a whole lot of money. And with VA, with it being 100% financing, they don't have to come to the table. However, that earnest money deposit, when you have some skin in the game, you can't. The house is $300,000. If I'm a seller's agent, I don't want a $500. I don't want a $500 deposit. I don't want a $1,000 deposit. I'm not taking my house off of the market because it's too easy to walk away from $1,000. So I tell my buyers all the time, I want to see some strength in that earnest money deposit, especially if you have the money. You know, Pennsylvania's agreement of sale is written kind of to protect the buyer's money with the contingencies. So I think that's one of my bigger issues as a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, that if I'm representing the seller, the buyer, I think that's going to win. I want to see a stronger deposit. And I also want to see a reputable mortgage company.
Yes.
I don't know who Easy Mortgage is. I'm sorry if there's a really easy mortgage out there. I'm just saying, but I think it's important to make sure that, you know, they're familiar with the lender. If I have a lender, if they come to me with a lender and I can't get the lender on the phone just to verify, you know, their pre-approval, that's a problem, because as a seller's agent, you're going to try to contact the lender. And if I can't reach them as the buyer's agent and there's multiple offers, then that's definitely an issue.
Well, let's talk about that really quickly. Why is it important to get a pre-approval prior to actually going out there and looking at houses? Like, someone may call and say, I just want to go and take a look. Are you guys taking buyers out and saying...
No,
Sure.
I have people that get mad at me, like friends and family members, because it's kind of like, especially if the home is occupied, I don't want you sightseeing through my house. If I'm selling my house, I don't want you sightseeing and you just want to come through to see. You don't even know if you're pre-approved. It's important to get a pre-approval because your credit may be great, but just because your credit's great, I don't know what all your debts are. And if I don't know what your debts are, you may think you can buy a $300,000 house, but by the time you factor in the car note you signed for, you know, student loans and all your credit cards, the mortgage company may say, hey, you can only afford a $150,000 house. So it's important to have that pre-approval just so you know where you stand. I know where you stand. And I tell people all the time, like, I don't want you to get like all excited about this house and then we try to get a pre-approval and now now I'm going to be the Debbie Downer and I'm going to tell you, hey, you know what? You can't afford this house. This is what your mortgage company said. So,
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's. I very early in my career made those mistakes, and I did a disservice to the buyers, is how I look at it, because I agreed to take people out and I toured them through houses, and then they got approved, or they didn't get approved rather, and for various reasons, or they got approved for a number they didn't have. And that was problematic. So I'm looking at $300,000 houses, and they can only afford $250,000. Well, a $300,000 seller, let's all be real, is probably not coming down to $250,000. Okay, I mean, maybe they will, but I doubt it.
Right.
That's a 20% decrease in price. Let's all be real. You probably wouldn't give your house up that way.
Yes.
So don't expect somebody else to. So when we look at that, I made those mistakes. I don't do that anymore. And I stopped doing it. And, the other reason also goes back to the safety. I don't know who you are on the other side of that phone when you want to see a home. So I know if you have spoken to a lender, then that lender has at least gotten your information. They may know your work history. They know where you work at. They know what your credit number is. They now you've taken that extra step. So you've proven to me you can do
You're
this
serious.
and you want to do this. You're serious.
Great point.
Otherwise, if you're not ready as a buyer, and you just want to go see houses, they have open houses.
I was about to say, go to open houses.
Just go to open houses, because that will motivate you also as a buyer, that if your credit isn't great or you have some issues you need to clean up, that will motivate you to get those things done to get you in a front door.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we are running out of time, guys. But I really want both of you really quickly to just give one tip to a seller about what it is that they can do in this market to get their property sold, because the market has shifted some, right? So we're not everyone is going to get 15 offers on their property. So what is it that they can do to make their properties more marketable right now?
I think for sellers, have your house look its absolute best. Declutter. Some people aren't really all that visual. If it's an empty house, I like to typically have, ask my seller if they mind if I virtually stage it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I might virtually stage it even with their furniture, like just remove all the furniture, because people are just very visual. And I think that's the biggest tip. I mean, there could be so many, but that's probably the biggest one, because you want... It's like we like nice things, pulling up the very first thing you see. I don't want to see a boarded up window if you're living in this house. Like, it has to, that curb appeal, it matters.
It does.
That stuff matters. When you walk up, hey, the person's like, oh, this is nice. Like, you can't do anything about what the neighborhood may look like, but you can definitely do something about what the front of your home looks like and what the inside of the home looks like.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be $1 million person. It could be a $50,000 house. Just make sure your house is clean.
As I was about to say, make sure it's clean.
If you have animals, don't have the animals like all over the place. You definitely that's my one big tip for a seller.
Yeah, for a seller, I would say it goes to the financial side. So you definitely have to look good, because nobody wants to look at something that doesn't look good. Right. It wards people off. It would be, the pricing. You have to price it correctly.
Absolutely.
There is no more, price it at some obscene number and let's just see where it goes. That is just a recipe for failure. You wouldn't go to a doctor who said, well, let's do open heart surgery because that might fix your headache. You have to put it in that basic terms. You're creating real estate malpractice if you're not listing things properly. So sit down with your realtor and say, where do we need to list this? What are other homes selling for? And take into effect that last year is not this year.
Absolutely.
Buyers are a little more gun shy. And, a lot of them, they had to adjust what they were buying, because when you increase the interest rate and the amount of interest they're paying, the amount of principal goes down.
Yes.
So the price of that property shifts.
Okay. Listen, I want to thank both of you. It always seems like I run out of time.
Yeah, right. So it's getting better and better.
Yes,
it's great. I mean,
Listen, we're both available for
this
part
I was
two.
about to say. Listen, I mean, I might have to move what I had next week to, this week. Do you guys come? I mean, I'm gonna at you right on the air. Like, seriously,
No
because
pressure.
I feel like it's so much that we have to, share, about real estate, with sellers and buyers and real estate agents, right? Because here's the thing. We all believe that the better a cooperating agent is, the better it is on us too, as real estate agents, where we're trying to negotiate a transaction. You know, we don't want agents we can't get in contact with, or agents who are writing sloppy contracts or whatever it is. So I'm running out of time and I'm running my mouth. All right, please give your information. Oh no, I'm gonna ask y'all right now. Y'all gonna come next week?
Wait. No, I'm not saying not. I got to look at my calendar.
You got to look at the calendar.
You know me.
All right, you don't have to do that now. I don't want to.
I'm actually, that's the only day. Look.
You're free?
The only day I'm free.
All right, let's say it. So, but listen, Phil, do that later. Give your information because I want people to get in contact with you.
Sure. So, Phil Cavalcanto with Coldwell Banker Realty. You can go to our website at littlebigcityGroup.com. Do people give phone numbers?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. First time here.
Absolutely.
My cell number for anybody with questions, 215-681-6610. And my email is my first initial last name, pcavalcanto@gmail.com. We're in a recruiting mode, so if you are a newer agent looking for mentoring and to be part of a team and grow with a team and eventually do what you need to, give me a call because we're interviewing now.
Okay, I highly recommend Phil.
Desiree Davis. You can reach me at my email is findyournexthome@icloud.com. My number is 267-702-0002. Instagram, Desi Philly Realtor. But yeah, this was great. Thank you so much for the invite.
Absolutely. Well, listen, guys, we will be here next week with part 2.
Yeah,
you checked?
I'm free.
Phil is free.
The calendar.
Yes, Desiree is free. Obviously, I'm free. I got to be here, right? So listen, thanks again, guys. This is Desiree, Real Estate Diva McDuffie. You have been listening to Real Talk with the Real Estate Diva, and I can be reached at phillyrealestatediva.com, and my office number is 267-238-2877. Until next week, be blessed. We'll have you guys here for part 2 next week.
There you go.
All right, guys.
Perfect.